Hello and welcome to the latest video for Propportunities. Today we're going to start with a series of short guides on the UK property market, and given the September boom, auction houses, particularly selling through auction in general. So again, this is one of a series of guides which we'll be also looking at our best picks for future auctions and some of the results of analysing results of previous auctions. But today we're just going to talk about the concepts in general. Again, it's just our opinion, so no liabilities anyway, and really we're going to look at who, what, why and how effectively. So first of all, what's the difference between selling an auction and through a usual agent? Well, there's a number of things. One is timescale. Once a property is sold at auction, it's invariably sold with a 28 days, and when the hammer goes down in the room, that is the exchange of contracts, and that's based on all the legal information provided to you before the sale. So once you've done it, you're committed to it, or you lose your deposit, usually 10% of the price of the property. As I say, it's all immediate, and completion is usually within 28 days, or sometimes it could be 60 days or 90 days by negotiation, or by a prior negotiation, that is, or by listing in the catalogue. So really the big thing about auctions is risk. There's generally a reason a property is being sold at auction. This could be a number of reasons. It could be that it's a housing association or a public body which needs to show it's offered it fairly and openly in a public forum. It could be repossession. A lot of banks use auctions to sell repossessed properties. It could have an issue with it. It could be a structural issue, a neighbourly issue, anything from subsidence to knotweed, to dry or damp rot, etc. Or just because somebody needs to sell quickly. It could be somebody who needs the money, or it could be the result of a distressed sale or a divorce or something like that. So there are many reasons, many types of property. So in the UK, which we're going to focus on, the UK market, it's increasingly popular because it's more mainstream now. It's not seen as a trade way of buying and selling properties. But also it's been made popular by things like the BBC's Homes Under the Hammer, which we took in part in our sales a few years ago. Other countries such as Australia, much more common, where they normally sell at the property, whereas in the UK it's a catalogue offer. So a number of properties, a number of lots are all sold in turn over a short period, normally a few hours, sometimes up to a couple of days. So as I said before, it's much more of a public thing now. It's open to everybody, or most are open to everybody, although there are some restrictions which suggest that's not always the case. Auction catalogues are invariably only released 2 or 3 weeks before sale, which doesn't give a lot of time for people who need to get expert opinion or arrange finance or have surveys undertaken. Whilst this can be done, it's quite unusual, and normally it's people buying at auction who are in a good position, or a house they specifically want, and again mainly property professionals. The types of properties that you'll find at auction vary immensely. You've got everything from standard houses, flats, to farms, commercial buildings, shops and offices, although they're generally on a separate auction. But anything from holiday homes to plots of land and billboards. We've seen things like forts in the Channel, Scottish castles, and things as much as lakes and forestry lots available. But we generally will focus more on the residential property offers. So the other question is, are they cheap, and if so, by how much? Well, the general answer to that is yes. Various opinions, but most people agree that somewhere between 15 and 20% from what would be expected in open market value, and I think that's probably about right. But it's not always the case. Quite often you'll get niche properties where in a local area you perhaps wouldn't get many people being interested, whereas when you offer it on a national or a more trade environment, it can generate a lot more interest, and we'll look at some examples of that in another video. Don't forget, when you are considering the cost, you do also think about auction fees. Now, these are not only the standard administrative fee that you pay to the auction house, but quite often you'll be expected to cover the fees, or at least some of the fees of the seller. And these can be sometimes hidden quite a way into the legal pack, so do make sure you have a look at what the costs are. When we're talking about professional services, you've got to look at that as well. Finance, if you need finance, very, very important to not only get finance arranged and agreed in advance, but also get finance from a provider who is familiar with the auction process. It's no good them putting you in a queue where 6 to 8 weeks time you're going to get a decision. You need money fast, and you need to be able to be in a position to complete within 28 days, which means you need funds released within probably 20 days. Same goes for conveyancing. You don't want a solicitor, a high street solicitor, perhaps a small practice that's done 1 or 2 of these in the past. You want somebody who's experienced, they've got the facilities in place, they know they're going to have to complete quickly, and they know how to do it, and they're familiar with the process. So that generally summarises the process, a bit of a whistle-stop tour, I suppose. So what I'd like to do now is look at the auction houses and the main operators in the UK. So before we look at their websites individually, I've categorised these very, very loosely into sort of 4 key groups, and that there are 1 or 2 very big, very well established houses. Allsop and Savills are the main known ones here. Now they offer large catalogues with several hundred lots, a number of times a year, normally held in London, and they will sell things from small ground rent investments for a couple of £1,000 through to large houses and estates and undeveloped projects for several £1 million. It's not unusual to see big properties and expensive properties being sold in this way. As I say, they have a big span. They still send out traditional catalogues, although more and more like all going online. And they get a full room. There's several hundred people will be there on the day, so it can be quite intimidating if it's your first time. They generally do seem to get a good price. We used to joke years ago that you could buy off a small auction house and flip it in the next month into one of the national ones and probably make as much money as you would developing it. I'm not quite sure that's so true anymore, but they do sell a lot of properties. The second tier, I would say, are the smaller national ones with a national reach, or the very focused regional players. So these would be people like Barn and Marcus for the smaller national, or Clive Empsons, who cover the southeast all the way from Essex through Kent down to Cornwall, and Pugh and Company, who are based up in the north and I think have Manchester and Leeds based auctions. So they're very big. They have a lot of stock in their regions. They specialise in a lot of local knowledge. Then you've got some real sort of the smaller ones, like in the southeast, Hartman Healy's ones, which is based, I think, in South London, and Auction House. Auction House are a little bit different. They're something of a franchise. I'm not sure exactly what their model is, but they're based all over the UK now, and they're growing very, very quickly. And then finally, we've got the new kids on the block, as it were, the online auction houses. One of these that I've been focusing on recently is BidX1, and I know a couple of the team who've set this up, and it's very good, and it seems a really growing way of selling in this way. And there are more and more smaller, what they call modern auction methods, which are done by some of the more established estate agency chains. And what they're doing is they're doing what is not quite as a restrictive auction, where what you do is you effectively buy a right of exclusivity, or you pay a smaller percentage, but it's slightly more flexible. Okay, so that pretty much concludes our guide to auction processes and houses. In our next video, part 2, we're going to be looking at a few of the auction websites themselves and picking out some of the lots coming up in the forthcoming September sales. So sort of final thoughts really is, if you are looking at buying and selling an auction, you do find something catches your eye, ask the question why it's going in auction. There's normally a reason. And as a golden rule, if you can't find the reason, be very, very careful, because there normally is one. Okay, it could be something as simple as somebody needs to sell quickly, or it's an executor sale, or it's a repossession. They're straightforward. If it's something where property perhaps has been recently completely redecorated, but perhaps on a budget, so it looks like it's trying to hide some kind of problem or structural defect, then they're the ones that I'd maybe treat with a little bit more caution. Okay, so thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get kept up to date of new videos, and go on to propportunities.co.uk to become a member and get more free information. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.